Now, Ken, you've actually been over to the Gaza Strip, which the Israelis essentially have turned into this dungeon, this prison, where these people are trapped. There's very little water and food and other basic services. They're constantly harassed, bombed in some cases. What is life like over in the Gaza Strip and I guess in occupied Palestine generally?
Well, it's one of the most densely populated places in the world. I think the population is approaching 2 million now. Over half of the population are children. And what you have here is a captive population, which is really more like a concentration camp, to be honest. In a prison, that denotes that you've committed a crime, and in a prison you would normally get 3 square meals and medical attention. That's not the case in the Gaza concentration camp. The crime is being Palestinian, and you don't get any medical coverage, and you don't get 3 square meals a day. In fact, the blockade of Gaza, which has been going on for many, many years now, has cut off all meaningful supplies for rebuilding, to be able to develop your economy, to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Basically, the Palestinians have been put on a, quote, diet, according to Israeli officials, and we see the routine massacres like the one in 2014, the summer of 2014, also in the winter of 2008-2009, where Israel goes in and bombards a captive population. Back in 2008-2009, we saw white phosphorus being fired in one of the most densely populated places on the planet, an open war crime, and do we see any punishment? No. Israel can get away with anything, including attacking the USS Liberty back in 1967, killing 34 Americans on a clear blue sunny day just like this with an American flag flying, and they claim that they didn't know it was an American ship. And our government and our fucking traitors in high up positions have been covering this shit to this day. In fact, all of the Congress should know and does know about this, but they'll never talk about it because they're bought and paid for by Israel.
Well, I mean, that goes to the heart of what's wrong with American politics, and that is we have a government that is controlled largely by organized Jewish interests.
Indeed.
I mean, these people literally put the interests of Israel over the interests of their own nation. And this is on display on a daily basis.
You know what makes that crystal clear is Netanyahu's visits to the U.S. Congress. There's only one other head of state that's been invited to speak at the U.S. Congress 3 times, and that was Winston Churchill. He was a fucking asshole as well, but nonetheless, most people would say what a great man in World War II and da-da-da-da-da. But Netanyahu is an open war criminal. He's an absolute son of a bitch. He's friends with Larry Silverstein, by the way, and they were talking every week in the lead up to 9/11. Interesting.
Right.
And this guy comes to the U.S. Congress, and I swear to God, isn't it like this? Just bend the fuck over, literally, for some head of state from Israel. It's embarrassing, and it reveals just how treasonous our government is, that it sits there and kisses the ass of an open war criminal, Jewish supremacist, Talmudic Zionist bastard like Netanyahu. And that is the state of our nation. And American sons and daughters are being sent off for more wars. They're escalating Syria. They're trying to get us more deeply involved. More American sons and daughters are meant to be sacrificed for this bullshit.
That's right. One final question. What did you think of Donald Trump's statement that he would try to be neutral in the Israel-Palestine conflict?
Well, I mean, you know, that you can say it, but doing it is another thing altogether. I mean, we have not seen anybody in the position of president actually stand up to Israel since John F. Kennedy. And, you know, when he crossed Israel, he crossed it seriously. If it had been up to Kennedy, we would have been inspecting Dimona, Israel's nuclear power plant, way back in the 60s. Now Israel has 200 to 400 nuclear weapons and leaders that have claimed the right to be able to exercise the so-called Samson option. And if you don't know what that is, go Google Samson option. And we've given these motherfuckers 200 to 400 nuclear weapons. American technology was secretly shared through France to get over there. And if Kennedy had succeeded, that would have been stopped. Now we have a world with 200 to 400 nuclear weapons in Israel's hands, this very dangerous state, which is highly unpredictable. And it has said openly, if it feels its existence is threatened, it will exercise this option to effectively launch nukes against the world. So the only president we've had with any balls in recent history has been John F. Kennedy. We see what happened to him. If Donald Trump has those kinds of balls, you know, fantastic. I hope he does. But he will be facing that kind of enemy. The system is not there to allow any kind of real autonomy and real representation of the American people. It's all Israeli censored, and that needs to stop. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot of faith that Trump will do it, but hey, we'll see. He should be disqualified as an absolute egomaniac, a megalomaniac. This is not generally how you would want a leader to be. You want somebody who's truly a man of the people, who has exhibited qualities of real compassion, of strength, and what you have is a megalomaniac, and that's the best option you have, because compared to Hillary Clinton, a 100% pure grade psychopath criminal with a provable record of that kind of shit. Between the two, yeah, Trump's the best chance, I think.
Well, and speaking of Trump, if you look at the way he frames everything, all of his public policy positions, how he handles the media, he's always framing it in what's best for America. And it is that sort of traditional populist spirit where he does sort of portray himself as a man of the people. And I think that is working. It's really resonating with people. What are your thoughts on his candidacy in general?
Well, he's a clever guy, and yes, I'll tell you what people have, they've reached a point, this is happening all across the Western world, by the way, in Greece, in Portugal, in the UK, it's happening everywhere. People are starting to see these cardboard cutout prostitute fucking embarrassment traitors who are running for politics. They're seeing them for what they are. So anyone who doesn't fit that mold in any substantial way, they will go to that. So he could be a Trump, a so-called Republican on the right or whatever. It could well be a lefty. In fact, you see that kind of thing happening with Bernie Sanders, a socialist in America, actually getting the kind of support that runs counter to Hillary Clinton. Because people know that she is nothing but a continuation of the same old, tired, fraudulent, pathetic, treasonous kind of leadership that the powers that be demand. So Donald Trump is tapping into that discontent. And, if there's a legitimate election, I would have thought he would win, to be honest. I think Ron Paul would have won had there been. There is no legitimate elections here. There's selections. The electoral college system is a joke. People are starting to learn a little bit more about superdelegates. This is happening with Bernie Sanders. He'd be winning probably, except for the superdelegate system, which is all the controlled puppets who will vote towards the approved candidate, and that's Clinton, of course. So, people need to realize in this country, and also in the West in general, that the elections are almost completely and totally fraudulent. So you don't have a selection, you don't have an actual choice to begin with. Trump, Clinton, is that the best that we have in this country? Out of all this 300 million people, that's the best? And so between those two, even they can manipulate it. Electronic voting machines and all sorts of other nonsense. It's a joke.
Right. Well, and one final thing about Trump before we wrap up is I have been very impressed with his campaign, frankly. I think he's right on a lot of these issues. He's really pushing the political discourse in the right direction.
Yeah.
He's bringing up issues that no one else would dare touch, including issues like free trade and globalization and how they've been so destructive to the American economy and harmful to the American worker.
Yeah.
His stance on immigration, I think, is rock solid because it's not an anti-Mexican thing, it's a rule of law thing. And our country has been flooded with illegal people, and frankly, they gotta go. And there's other issues that he's talked about. He's denounced political correctness. But you're right about our elections being fraudulent. There's so much evidence for this. And what I'm hoping is that Trump is so popular, it would be impossible for them to steal the election from him.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. But, again, my problem with Trump is that he is a megalomaniac. He is fucking ego on steroids. And a guy like that doesn't strike me as having the kind of balls and warrior spirit that needs to be in place in order to confront the powers that be. You have to have some sort of kind of selfless warrior spirit, a genuine one, and he does not strike me that way. He's so full of himself that, again, I think that should disqualify you right off the bat. But in this world that we're living in, you need a megalomaniac that can actually attract attention, not some real noble person who has a warrior spirit and yet compassion for people around the world. That's what we really need, and that's not Trump at all. But I will agree with you. A lot of what he's saying is it's really, a lot of it's spot on. A lot of it's stupid as well, the Muslim thing. And he was talking about on 9/11 Palestinians and Arabs dancing, with Alex Jones of all people. Total absurdity. Turning it upside down, it was Israelis dancing, provably, and all this.
Right.
So, he says some stupid shit, but overall, he's, in my opinion, and some people have been construing this as I support Trump. They're starting to write it, and I feel like I have to defend. Listen, I'm not endorsing Trump.
You can go on the record right now.
But he is the best option between him and Clinton. I don't fucking vote. It's a joke. But if I was to vote him and Clinton, but that shouldn't be your choice.
Yeah.
We should have better choices than that.
All right. Thanks, Ken, and thanks for watching, everybody.